talk about today? I'm literally stuck. I have no idea what we're going to talk about.
I think you find talking about something interesting.
I think I found something interesting. How about the poem of Papa's Wolf by Theodore Roy?
That's a great idea.
Cool.
The whiskey on your breath could make a small boy dizzy.
I think it meant his father was alcoholic and he had issues with it, and apparently I don't think he liked it. But I hung on like that, such waltzing was not easy.
But his son endured the pain.
The hand that held my wrist was battered on nickel.
I think what he's trying, how I interpret this piece is that it shows a sign of sophistication and calmly pushes the idea that despite brutality, you can still thrive and you can still merge between a broken heart and a rotten man. It's a very poetic piece, and I think it's very enjoyable. Don't you agree?
Yeah. At every step you missed, my right ear scraped a buckle.
I think this piece is, we have to take it into literal terms, and what it means that it's the child has gone through physical trauma and he endures it despite all the pain.
Yeah.
Around until the pain sailed from the kitchen shelf, my mother's countenance could not unfold itself.
Yeah, I think the second paragraph it tells us like a hint tell the readers maybe the dancing not really happy as the poetry said. How about you?
Yes, I agree with you, and I think it's like the violence.
Your bedtime on my head with a pound cake child by dirt, then whirls me up to bed, still clinging to your shirt. What do you think about this one?
I find the speaker's attitude toward his father critical, and also this line suggests that the boy is still clinging toward his father. And the persistence evokes a complicated love.
Nice.
Love calls us to the thing of this world. The balance here is not only between the physical and the spiritual, but between a state of mind that deals with physical pressure and necessary awkward to the singer, even more challenging girl.
The poem I like is The Winter Evening Settles Down. And what I like about this poem is that this poem has a great poetry beyond midnight and makes me to feel as if I'm in the streets. Also, this poem is very calm and quiet, so I
Of Metro. This is a very short poem, but giving readers a kind of depressed feeling. Everybody work without expression in the crowd station of the metro. Everyone is like ghost without soul. On the other hand, the petals example of everyone still struggling to exist.
Okay, so me and Evan here, we're going to talk about To a Locomotive in Winter by Walt Whitman. That's the abbreviation for him. So he wrote this poem around the 1870s, right? So that's around the 18th, 19th century, I'm not entirely sure.
That's 19th century.
19th century. And so we have different interpretations of this story. And I'm going to tell my story. So I think it's essentially about a train, a locomotive. He's very descriptive and very imaginative. It's like he's inviting us to talk along on this journey. He seems also very passionate, because why would you pick a train as your vocal theme of a poem? And I found that very hard to break down and make an impression out of. You know what I mean? So that's essentially what I thought. So he says, like, despite the harsh weather and the darkness, the train never stops. That could be like a motivational thing for humans. That's my interpretation of the actual the piece and what Whitman was trying to reveal to us, the listeners, the readers. So, what about you, Evan? What did you make of it? Because to my understanding, you had an opposing view. Because I thought of it it's kind of simplistic, while he had a different, more conceptual view, I think.
The poem was written in the 1870s, apparently the exact time when the train, apparently the locomotive was invented. So I think the poem was inspired by the locomotive.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he wrote the poem to celebrate the invention of locomotive, which till this day is a definitive, not a definitive, should I say, a primary way to travel.
You're exactly right. But so in the actual poem, he's not really indicating anything else than that. So he's basically just talking about how he's paying homage to it. Is that what you're trying to say?
Yes.
So that's great. So we have I think that could be possible. That I'm entirely sure that's the root of his why he wrote this. However, I was more into the how between the lines and reading the concept of what he's trying to say. But I think we're running out of time. But that's interesting. And
I like to see Islam the miles. This poem, although the subject is never named explicitly, only referred to as it is about a train.
I want to talk about this sentence. And supposedly, super sules beer. It can turn into a glory as if it were a quote.
I think he sized the might are such that it can take a giant reduction step around a belt of mountains. Then it's most crowd more solely through a tight space. She imagines it sounds.
Also, I want to talk about this sentence again. And knife like bonages, bonages. When it can move faster, it's about when it can move faster. Finally, I think the other was smart. Also, the speaker enjoys watching this train traveling through the country. And thank you so much.
Thank you.
Today I want to talk about the poem. It's called "In a Station of the Natural." It's by Azure Poem. Everyone rushed to get into the cars, no matter you are the rich or the poor, and the train come to go so fast. Therefore, you can see passengers' face clear. The Azure Poem, like facing a lot of people at the station, when he was started to discuss this poem, and he thinks that the people are just like the flower at the station. The flower is like without lantern, and they falling down by the rain. So it was looks like very difficult situation, just like the people who living in the colorful time. Thank you.
This poem is by Stephen Crane. It's called The Wayfarer. The Wayfarer, perceiving a pathway to truth, was struck with astonishment. It was thickly grown with weeds. "Ha!" he said. "I see that none has passed this way in a long time." Later he saw that each weed was a singular knife. "Well," he mumbled at last, "doubtless there are other roads." There are many elements to poetry that make it pleasing to the ear and pleasing to the eye to read. The form of the poem, the sounds that the poem makes, the message of the poem, the theme, all of these things are components that make a poem pleasant to listen to or awkward and uncomfortable, which is okay for poetry to do. The main job of poetry is to make a reaction, make an emotion, so that you feel something. So this can happen visually, it can happen internally, or it can happen from listening to the poem or reading it oneself. But for someone to truly understand poetry, they have to understand what's going on multiple levels. What the poet is saying overtly, and what the poet is saying covertly, kind of under the surface. To interpret this meaning, you have to analyze the poem, the structure, and what's going on, the elements of the poem. But ultimately, what I enjoy about poetry most is the musical quality, the sounds. I enjoy that I think music is poetry, song lyrics are poetry. I like to listen to music and believe that's listening to poetry. I think it's good to write poetry, but I'm not very good at writing poetry. Sometimes my poetry is kind of childish, but I still enjoy it. I think the best thing is to have a short poem and to read that and make you think or make you feel. Anyway, that's about it for poetry.